Sometimes it seems like I live the same life over and over again. I dream of moments from the past, the crime I committed, and the punishment for it I am now forced to bear. This is my personal hell I can no longer escape from. I get up. They have come for me again and are taking me to a room for another interrogation. When will it all end? I've already told you everything. Don't you believe me?
Mr. Collins, I promise this will be our last conversation.
Okay, turn on your camera.
This is the record of the interrogation of Stephen Collins. It is highly classified and is intended for study by personnel with the highest level of access. Mr. Collins, tell us everything from the beginning.
As I've said before, we were walking along the beach with my dog, Tyson, when we found an abandoned house. It was practically falling down. I don't know why, but I was curious about what was in it. So I went in. It was an ordinary house. There was a mess inside. It seems like no one had lived there for a long time. And then, I heard Tyson barking at something. There was a large mirror lying right on the floor, and on it was some strange round object. It looked like a talisman or a pendant. Before I knew it, I had already stepped on that mirror and picked it up. As soon as I had it in my hands, it immediately began to glow purple. I fell in that same second, right inside the mirror. I found myself in a strange place. Tyson was barking furiously. I looked around and saw the hole through which I had fallen next to me. My dog was rushing around on the other side. It was impossible. The mirror I'd stepped on turned out to be a portal to some parallel reality. Where was I anyway? I decided to take a look around. There was a crumbled city nearby, and I headed there. All around me were broken windows, rusty cars, and piles of garbage. But I didn't meet a single living soul. The strangest thing was, nothing around me looked familiar. I didn't recognize the makes of the cars or the people on the advertising posters, and all the inscriptions were of a strange religious nature. I picked up a piece of yellow newspaper and read. In the direct address of His Holiness, it was said that the blessed militia fought back many of the unclean. What kind of nonsense was that? There was an unbearable stench around. It seems like it was coming from some strange brown slime that was covering everything. I decided to film it on my phone, but then I noticed movement at the end of the street. Just an indistinct shadow, but definitely of a person. It disappeared around the corner, and I ran after it. Was there really someone alive there? As I turned the corner, I noticed that the shadow had disappeared into an abandoned hospital. I followed it. The hospital was weird. I'd never seen anything like it. Unusual devices and tools were lying all around. Ugh, there were also terrible tanks with stinking liquid everywhere. Pipes cracked from age were leading to them. Pools of brown liquid were glistening here and there on the floor. I walked through a couple of floors of the hospital, but I didn't meet anyone. Maybe I just imagined it. I saw a computer in one of the offices. Strangely enough, it turned on. I took out several folders with documents from the desk and started to study them. The more I read, the stranger everything that was going on seemed.
What did you find out, Mr. Collins?
That place really wasn't our world. It was some sort of parallel reality. Judging by what I learned almost 350 years ago, it was visited by some godlike creature. No one knew where it had come from. The creature had given people advanced technologies and taught them how to use them. It had also said that their world was full of sin, and the only way to get rid of it was to purify all the sinners. A liquid called his tears had been used for that. All the sinners had been put in that liquid. But then, something had gone wrong. The sinners had started to mutate and turn into huge monsters after the cleansing. They had devoured all living beings. Soon, there was no one left on that earth, only the ghosts of former people and those giants.
What did you find out, Mr. Collins?
That's when I decided those were just ravings of a madman, but it still made me feel uneasy. I decided the time had come to end my crazy trip. After leaving the hospital, I went back. The stench was getting worse, and it became hard to breathe. I walked to the corner and threw up. I leaned against the wall and touched that brown slime by accident. Heck! It burned so much! I jumped back, tripped, and fell next to a wrecked car. I grabbed some rag lying on the hood. But what was it? It couldn't be. The rag turns out to be that dress!
What dress was it?
I've kept silent about it for a long time, but now I'm ready to tell you. 3 years ago, I was coming back from a party. I must have fallen asleep at the wheel. I woke up when I heard the car hit something. A girl had jumped out onto the road. I got away with it that time. My relative was investigating the case. He made everything go away. But I knew that someday I would have to answer for what I had done. I still remember her lying on the hood of my car, her dress, and red spots on it. Now, that same dress was lying on the hood of that wrecked car. It didn't just look similar. It was definitely the dress of that dead girl. How had it ended up there? I felt more scared than ever. At that moment, I understood everything, and a chill ran down my spine. I'd ended up in hell, the one they used to scare me with as a child. Damn it! I wasn't going to stay there a second longer, so I rushed to the portal. My eyes were watering from the stench. I turned on my camera and immediately cried out in surprise. There were shadows on the street ahead of me, those very ghosts. They stared at me. I started running around the corner, but there were even more of them there. They were so close. I could even see their faces, tired and indifferent. "Leave me alone," I shouted. "Get away from me." At that moment, I heard a door slam, and a guy in an orange jumpsuit appeared in the alley. He was alive! "Shut up! You can't shout here!" he hissed angrily. "Ghost, they're all around me!" I barely managed to mumble. "They won't do anything to you. But when giant monsters come, attracted by your screams, we're done." That guy grabbed me and started dragging me along. We found ourselves in a small room under old pipes. It was obvious that he had been living there for a very long time. He was very strange. I can't explain why, but he seemed very familiar to me. It was like I'd met him before. I'd asked what his name was, but he just said, "It doesn't matter. Now, I am forever Subject D, 43093. That guy was from the personnel of your foundation. He'd realized it was actual hell as soon as he had been sent there. Your scientists had decided to not risk themselves and put a test subject no one would care about inside the portal. That's why he had decided to run away. During one of the experiments, he had unfastened the rope and hidden it in a basement. He'd lived there for several years, hiding from monsters and finding food for himself. It was weird, but it felt like he had been waiting for me. As soon as I'd caught my breath, he got up and said, "We have to go. The portal may close soon." We started on our way. We walked through yards and alleys so as not to attract the ghost attention. I was looking around using my smartphone. From time to time, I saw some lone shadows. But when we got out of the city, we found ourselves surrounded by them. They were looking at us and, what the hell, pointing fingers at us. I needed to get out of there. And then, I thought, how had that guy in the orange jumpsuit known where to go? After all, I hadn't told him where the portal was, but I didn't have the time to ask him that. At that moment, a giant shadow covered us. I looked up and saw something right above me. It was a huge half of a human body as high as a 5-story house. It was getting close to us, leaning on its hands and, it seemed like, sniffing. "Run!" shouted my friend wildly, and we took off. I heard heavy footsteps that shook the ground behind us. The monster was chasing us, just a little further, and we would be saved. But then, out of the corner of my eye, I saw a huge hand darting out in our direction. A second, and I would be done for. All of a sudden, I stumbled and fell. The giant's hand flew right by me and grabbed that guy in the orange jumpsuit. "No, God, no!" he shouted, horrified. I saw that monster press him to himself, and the poor guy started to sink into the giant's body. He was being sucked into the deep, sticky brown slime. It clung to him, and he screamed in pain. Don't agree to work with them," was the last thing I heard before he completely disappeared inside the monster. For a moment, the monster froze, as if digesting my poor friend, and then it reached out towards me again. I realized that if I didn't run right that second, I would be next. With the last of my strength, I rushed to the portal. 10 meters. I saw a huge hand flash by my side. 5 meters. I suddenly felt myself being squeezed from all sides and lifted into the air. I screamed in horror. But then, I saw people in military uniforms jump out of the portal. They started shooting somewhere above me. For a second, the monster's huge palm opened, and I fell down. When I got up, I saw it shrink back a little from the bullets, and then stretch its huge hand towards us once more. Someone grabbed me by the collar from behind and pulled me through the portal. The last thing I saw on the other side of the mirror was huge fingers disappearing in the cold hell. I found myself back in the abandoned house. People in protective suits were moving a disc into a small mirror box. Everything around us was covered with film and tape with the inscription SCP. Well, you already know what happened next. Damn it! They had locked me up and been interrogating me for 2 weeks already. But you know what? It was better than staying in that lousy place.
Mr. Collins, you do understand that you are going to get a life sentence for the crime you've kept silent about for 3 years?
A life sentence? Are you serious? After everything I've been through, you have no right! I have already redeemed myself when I got out of that hell with monsters alive!
Not quite, Mr. Collins. But you can redeem yourself.
How? How the hell else am I supposed to do that?
You can agree to cooperate with the SCP Foundation and take part in our experiments. You will only be free after several years of working for us, when we decide that you have paid for everything in full.
That's when I made another mistake. I didn't want to spend the rest of my life rotting behind the bars. So, I agreed without hesitation and signed the papers. I was given an orange jumpsuit and registered under the number D43093. Stop! What the? It doesn't matter. Now, I am forever subject D43093. I've already seen that number. Don't agree. Don't agree to work with them. It couldn't be. It turns out, that had been me. No, not again! Let me go! I'm not going back there!
You'll end up there anyway.
Those bastards tied a safety rope to me and pushed me right into the mirror. So, here I am again. I hate this place! I'm not a lab rat! No! Not again! I have to break this endless circle. I just need to wait until that other me appears. This time, he will be in for a surprise, and I will be the first to get to that damn portal. He won't stand a chance.